Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Parissis and welcome to another video. I'm back today with a video that hopefully has better sound. I know a lot of you were a little bit irritated about the sound quality in previous videos, so we've upgraded and I hope that this sounds better than the previous ones. Today I thought it'd be useful to talk about an FUE case study. Now FUE, as I'm sure a lot of you might know, is follicular unit extraction. It basically involves extracting hair follicles from the back and sides of the head in what we call the safe donor area, the area of hair follicles that are DHT resistant. It involves extracting hair follicles from this region and implanting them into the top or the front of the head in order to restore hair loss. This particular patient's case was shown to me, and I thought I'd highlight some of the pitfalls that this patient unfortunately experienced, just to make sure that some of you in the future don't experience it too. And the safe donor area is here. In fact, I actually believe, and I've spoke about it in previous videos, in what I call the safest donor area. And that's an area within the safe donor area that is most androgen resistant. So when we talk about the safe donor area, we talk about the hair follicles that are very androgen resistant, meaning that DHT does not exert its hair loss effects on them. But not all of the hair follicles in the safe donor area are actually 100% safe. They're mostly safe, but they're not 100% safe. I do believe though that the safest donor area, which is a 3 to 5 centimeter strip within the safe donor area, really contains the hair follicles that are closest to 100% resistant to DHT and therefore hair loss. You would struggle to find a man at any age that doesn't have that area of hair still remaining. So the only way of taking 100% of those grafts in the safest donor area is by FUT or by the strip technique, because we're quite literally able to cut out all of those grafts, process them, and then of course transplant them. So what has happened here? So I'm going to show you a few images. This is a patient who had an FUE procedure, and as you can see, he went to Turkey for his procedure and he had 4,300 grafts taken via FUE from the posterior and lateral portions of the scalp, transplanted to both the crown and the frontal sort of third, or the frontal hairline. He also had a section of the right sort of sideburn or temple zone. Compared to what we were just talking about with the safe donor area, if you look at this patient's extraction site, which is that red zone where you can clearly see all of the follicles were taken from, you can see that they took grafts from the safest donor area, which is good, that kind of strip within the middle of the safe donor area. They took hair follicles from the safe donor area, but in my opinion they also took grafts beyond the safe donor area. So you can see they went really, really high. You can see the top portion of the extraction site is really quite high up. It's almost within the patient's crown. And that means that if the patient is destined to lose his crown in the future, or at least lose that part of the crown, or experience what we call crown dipping, those grafts will be sensitive to DHT, so you will be transplanting grafts that are likely to be lost in the future. I also think that the surgeons have gone very, very low with the extraction site. They went very close to the neck, and a lot of patients experience retrograde alopecia, which means that those follicles close to the neck are also sensitive to DHT and are susceptible to being lost in the future. So really what we can see is that this patient has had many, many grafts transplanted by FUE, but he's had many grafts that could be lost in the future. And so that kind of goes against one of the best things that I like about hair transplant surgery, which is that it is the only permanent solution to hair loss that we have currently. So it goes against that. The next pitfall that unfortunately this patient experienced is the number of grafts that they took via FUE. Now, to fully restore hair loss on the top of the head, a lot of surgeons will say around about 5,000 to 7,000 grafts in total are needed to give an unremarkable or natural appearance and a full head of hair, if you like. This patient has had 4,300 grafts taken via FUE. That means that this patient's whole safe donor area is virtually decimated. They have taken a very large proportion of the safe donor area. If you think about the fact that the safe donor area generally contains, in the average patient, about 6,000 to 7,000 safe grafts, 4,300 is a lot. In one of my recent research papers with Dr. Bloxham, I was able to calculate that the average patient can take around about, well, just under 3,000 grafts before risking a thin appearance to the safe donor area. That means that after the surgery, after the FUE, the safe donor area will appear thin if you take more than 3,000 grafts. So this patient has had 4,300. Without a doubt, their safe donor area is going to look very thin after this procedure. Once it grows out, it will look very thin. Also begs the question as to what this patient's options are in the future. As I said, the average patient needs 5,000 to 7,000 grafts to fully restore the top portion of the head. So if he needs more, i.e. if he loses more hair, it's going to be very difficult to take any more by FUE without making the thin appearance of the safe donor area worse. And FUT is pretty much off the cards now because if we do a strip procedure, that strip is going to contain so few grafts because the safe donor area is so moth-eaten. That strip that we take will be so sparse with grafts. You know, if we did a strip on this patient, I reckon it'd be difficult to take more than 1,000 grafts because so many have already been taken. And the other reason why we wouldn't be able to do FUT on this patient after this procedure is because he has so few functioning follicles in this area that we would produce a scar that would be very difficult to hide because the hair would be too thin to hide it. The last pitfall that I would highlight here is just with the sideburn. I don't want to make a direct comment on this particular area that has been done by the surgeon, but looking closely, I'm not able to see the direction of the hairs. It's very important if you're getting kind of sideburn or zygomatic temporal regions, if you're getting hair transplants there, which is very common, by the way. A lot of patients experience recession, not just in the temporal regions, but also along the sides as well. It tends to kind of creep backwards together, so very, very common. I understand why this patient would have wanted that. It's just, you need to be very careful. The hair in the sides of the head here, it goes posteriorly, it faces posteriorly. It's not like the hair at the top, which kind of comes out straight. So it's important to obtain a natural appearance. It's important that the surgeon puts the grafts in at an angle, kind of facing backwards. As I said, I'm not able to comment on this one, but I just want to make sure that if you do want hair transplant, you do want to fill in these regions, that's important to highlight that to your surgeon or to make sure that your surgeon is doing that anyway. So that's just the final point, really. Just to say, this video is not to put down clinics in Turkey or any other place. It's really just from a surgical point of view, some of the pitfalls that I've seen, and this is not the only case, because after all, the surgical point of view is really what I'm most interested in. And I just thought that if I was to highlight the pitfalls, if I was to highlight the issues that went wrong with this case, then perhaps you might not experience those issues as well. So I hope you found this useful. Once again, I'm Dr. Parissis. I work in London, UK. If you're interested in a consultation where we can discuss your hair loss journey, which I'm always very interested in because I've experienced hair loss myself, your genetics, where we can do a deep dive into your family tree and work out whether you're going to have continued hair loss or not, and finally your treatment options that might be available to you. If you're interested in this, don't hesitate to email me at drparissis@gmail.com. You can also email me just if you have any general inquiries about hair loss. I'm always interested in your questions. I love to answer as many questions as I can.